Oh, Coasters, hey, beautiful day outside today. In fact, it's the place fantastic. And this morning, I've got the pleasure of talking to Ray Mudgway. Now, Mudgway family, Westport family, got links going back forever and a day. Ray, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Bruce.
Now, where do you fit in when it comes to the port strategy for the Buller Port?
Yeah, so I've been lucky enough over the last couple of years to be back involved on the West Coast. And I suppose where it started is I put a bid in as a consultant to do the port strategy work through Development West Coast a couple of years ago. And I was lucky enough to get that work. So I completed the strategy early last year, and we looked at, how do we take what is, some old assets. They haven't been replenished for a long time. We've had a bit of a diminished trade, around the wholesome cement, etc. And then how do we turn this around, work with government, get some money coming back into our ports and sort of turn them around and look to a bright future. So I've completed that report early last year. We put a bunch of funding applications through to government, and we were fortunate enough to get many millions of dollars. And you can see some of the outcomes of that now around our ports.
Yeah, well, Ray, look, at this point, I'd have to congratulate you for the work you did for us in Westland down at Jackson Bay. I mean, that thing was ready to drop into the sea. You want to see it now? It's beautiful.
Yeah, I must admit, growing up in Westport, those assets, when I went back a couple of years ago, they hadn't changed. And going down there last week and seeing these new pontoons, it's bloody good to see. Same in Greymouth, and I haven't been down to Jackson Bay yet, but I will get down there for whitebaiting shortly.
Look, there's a few crays around as well. Now, listen, I went about a week ago. I went and had a wander along the pontoons in the floating basin. They look to me to be incredibly practical. I spoke to 2 or 3 fishermen. They're absolutely wrapped. They look great.
Yeah, the feedback is excellent. It's a good system. It's modern. It gives us, a really bright future for the fishing sector. So one of the things that we really wanted to do is say, let's look after what we've got. Our fishing sector is important. There's a hell of a lot of fish caught off the West Coast that's not necessarily landed on the West Coast. And the basics are, let's make sure that our fishermen feel welcome, that they can have safe anchorage and safe berthing on the West Coast, and that's going to encourage them to grow their businesses on the West Coast. So, yeah, it's good to see. And, the feedback I've had as well, Bruce, is really good. So, pretty chuffed.
Yeah, they were pretty, I've got to say, the guys I spoke to, very excited. Now, tell me, what about, as a kid, I always used to fish off the wharf down by the where the silos used to be. And the wharf further along there towards the mouth was getting pretty ho-hum even back then. What are you doing there? Anything or?
Yeah, so we did a subsequent funding package through the post-COVID recovery fund, and we got quite a few $1 million into the council there to remove some of the gravel build-up that had happened over the years, and also look at some of the, I'll call them sea wharves, but basically the back of the pile wharves, and they offer some protection to the township of Westport. So there's quite a bit of money to go into fixing some of that. The wharves themselves are pretty beyond repair, a lot of those wharves down there. And, shipping's moved on, so we don't necessarily need to replace all of them, but what we do need is a good bulk facility over at least part of it, and that's what we're focused on down around that old wholesome wharf that you're referring to.
Used to be a great place for whitebait.
Well, there probably are a few upset whitebaiters, Bruce, these days with health and safety as it is. You can't normally put whitebaiters in the middle of a port operation, but look, there's still plenty of river access down there for the public, and I think the key around the Buller Port is that we're really conscious of how do you make it available for the public, and the lagoon area has some really great facilities around there for the public, but also have good, safe, efficient operations for your businesses like your fishing fleets and your bulk operators. So I think we can do both.
Ray, I was delighted to see the Kawatiri dredge out the Blaketown Lagoon. And then when I was in Westport the other day, it's actually working up there at the present time.
Yeah, well, she's a real treasure, isn't it? It's been around a long time. I think there's quite a lot of emotional tie to the Kawatiri, particularly around Buller. So it is nice to see it working again. She's been idle for quite some time, obviously doing ad hoc jobs. So I think one of the key things for us as a region is how do we get that dredge working again? I think one of the things that I prattle on about quite a lot is that ports are a system. So you can have a wharf, but if you don't have safe passage for ships to that wharf, then it's really a pointless asset. And, for us West Coasters, we need our rivers open. We need them sustainable. So that requires dredging, particularly on the Buller. So, she's a really important asset for us on the coast. And it obviously has other benefits by keeping that river tidy as well. And we've seen, a lot of gravel backed up since Wholesome, where we haven't had the funds to dredge the river.
Yeah, no, it's all part of it. It's like a great big clockwork piece, isn't it? It's all the bits fit in.
Yeah, and you've got to resolve it all, Bruce. You can't resolve 2/3 of it. You've got to resolve all of it if you're going to go forward, and that's a big part of the challenge. But it's doable, and we're proving that it's doable.
Yeah, Ray. Looking forward, look, it's fantastic that you've attracted all this money for the port. It's clear that the assets are going to be almost in new condition. Some of the things you're doing quite fantastic. But what happens going forward? Are we going to see? Do we need coal, or do we need? Our cement's gone. What's the future look like? Where's the cash flow going to come from?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think one of the hardest things about the port strategy was thinking about if we protect our fishing sector, so that's the pontoons, and then we look forward and how we're going to grow. It's quite hard to see how we could do that. And one of the things that's obviously come out is the mineral sector, which, as you know, I'm involved with now. I see a bright future there. I think it's a low impact way for us to grow an intergenerational business on the coast. And it's working in with all the other sectors as well. We've still got a very strong farming community. We've got a strong coal community. We've got strong engineering businesses. So I think it all sort of ties together. I think the key to the wharves is any port requires an anchor tenant and scale. The high fixed cost businesses, so you've got to have that big grunty underpinning activity to pay for things, because if someone's not prepared to pay for it, no one can use it, and that's what we've seen. So I think we've got an opportunity now for businesses to underwrite that structure again, and on the back of that, I think there'll be all sorts of opportunities for the coast. My phone rings regularly, I can assure you, of smaller businesses who see a need for a port option. At the moment, they don't have an option because there is no port tenant underpinning stuff. So it's building from a base, taking a long-term view and just working away at it. And I'm absolutely confident we can get a lot more coastal trade off the West Coast in the future.
Ray, do you think we'll ever ship out gravel?
Yeah, I think gravel is an option. At the moment, look, lots of people have looked at it. There's some really good grade gravel around Greymouth. The grade of gravel up around the Bull is not as good for the likes of Rodine, so it has a slightly different market. Right. At the moment, it's too expensive to get it out of the coast. The logistics out of the West Coast, it's isolated. We need these options. If you create an option and then you've got a shipping system that's already been underpinned by something else that is economic, then you can start to move things that are on the margins like gravel, like aggregates. We can look at stock feeds. We can look at fertilisers. There's a whole bunch of other products that go into the coast that people don't know about because they're stuck in containers coming via other ports and over our passes. So, look, there's no doubt there's opportunity. What you've got to do is you've got to start with the thing that can underpin it, and then you go up and up and up from there. And that's what we're focusing on.
Ray, at this stage, I chair the West Coast Civil Defence, and one of the things that keeps me awake at night is when the AF8 goes, ports and maybe one airport might be the only thing, the only way we can get supplies and people in.
Yes, no, that's exactly right. And if you look at any transport and logistics system, the key to success is having the multi-mode. You need rail, you need road, you need air, and you need sea. Now, if you look at the coast, if you don't have sea, it looks pretty limited. And I think getting the sea routes open to the West Coast again with a reliable port and river system, we're way more resilient as a region. So there's economic resilience with it. There's also emergency response. And look, you cannot fly enough product in and out of a region with helicopters if your roads and rails are closed and you don't have ships. So we need all of these things going. I think that's a very exciting part of getting our ports back up and running. But again, it's not about the wharf. because if your wharf isn't accessible by ship because the river's not operable, then you're still not achieving the objective. So, like, I think it's exciting, and I think it's one of the biggest benefits of what we're doing.
I think, Ray, in conclusion, it's pretty clear to me that the secret going forward is you've got to have something to ship out.
You do.
Otherwise,
someone's got to pay, Bruce, and, they're expensive things. And I'm a big believer that private business will pay if you give them the right support and the right proposition. And so get the businesses paying, get them underpinning stuff, and then we can all work together and do lots of other good things. So, and those opportunities are there. There's people willing to do it. We're willing to do it.
Well, Coasters, we've had the pleasure of speaking to Ray Mudgway this morning. Have a look at your port in Greymouth at the pontoons there. Go down to Jackson Bay, grab a crayfish and fish off the wharf, and go to Buller to the floating basin and have a look at the port there. Ray was involved in putting the strategic plan together. He's totally focused. He's got West Coast blood flowing through his system, and that's good enough for me. Ray, thanks so much for your time. It's really appreciated, and I'd love the opportunity to to talk about other aspects of the port over the next period of time.
Anytime. Thanks very much, Bruce. Good to chat.
Catch you later.
Catch up.